Well, Frank, Tomicah, welcome to the Utah State Capitol. We've just come from the signing of this important bill, HB 418, the Data Sharing Act, here in Utah, signed by Governor Cox. Would love to hear from you first, Frank. Tell us a little bit about Project Liberty and its mission.
Well, first of all, Doug, I want to say thank you to you and to the governor and to the entire legislature here in Utah for taking this on. You've demonstrated real courage and real leadership, and I think this is going to be have a massive impact on shifting the power dynamic of internet technology and shifting the power from the platforms to people. And I think it's just a fantastic moment, and it's a privilege to be here sharing the moment with you. Yeah, Project Liberty is now going on a 5.5-year effort to actually reimagine, redesign, rebuild the internet. It sounds daunting and for some impossible, but it's actually very doable. It's just technology. It works the way it works because we've all agreed to a couple of very simple protocols. Why not have another one that puts us in charge of our identity, our data, our relationships, and so on and so forth. So we believe that this technology as it's currently designed and used is highly exploitive and doing real harm. And the internet should be a tool for goodness and for positive change and to empower people, not exploit them. So we've invested a lot of time and energy. We have brilliant people working on the project to actually redesign how the technology works. It's now operating. There are a couple million people on this new internet, so this is not a pipe dream. But Project Liberty also has two other components. One is a policymaking effort, so that we engage with people just like yourself that have the courage to take on better policies to level the playing field and really encourage innovation and creativity and what I believe will be a burst of new advances, new businesses, and just new invention, which will move us forward as opposed to us feeling like we're actually sliding and slipping backward. And then thirdly, there's a movement track to Project Liberty, because ultimately change happens when people want it to happen and they lean in and they join forces, because there is strength in numbers. And at the end of the day, I don't think there's a more important issue today than this issue, because this is about reclaiming our personhood, reclaiming what's ours, and empowering people. Our data is our personhood in this day and age. It's every bit as important as our biological DNA. It's our digital DNA, and individuals should, of course, own what's theirs.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Frank. Appreciate all the work that you're doing, your leadership, your vision for this. Without you and Project Liberty, this could not have been done. Tomicah, for you, why are you engaged in this work? Why is this so important to you?
Well, I have a lot of kids. I don't have as many as Frank, but I have 5 kids, and I care a lot about the world in which they're going to grow up. And one of the lessons that I've learned both during my life and also in past generations of my family is that the systems and the infrastructure that we rely on as societies and communities really matters. If those systems and institutions are working well, a lot of great things happen. There's amazing creativity and dynamism and innovation that will be unleashed. If those systems are working badly, then the results very quickly end up leading us in really dangerous directions. And we're at a moment right now where the internet, which is as consequential as any system that we rely on in our lives, is not working the way it should. It is unfortunately a piece of critical infrastructure that is proving very dangerous and very damaging for our kids, our communities, and our country. And fixing that problem is about as important as anything that we can be focused on right now, because unless and until we solve that, we're not going to fix anything else.
You guys were obviously the spearhead around this idea of interoperability, data portability. But how were your introductions with Governor Cox, and how did those discussions go? How did you get to a point where, Utah is now, rolling this idea out throughout the state legislature, and how maybe I was introduced to it? Can you tell us about those early conversations?
I saw Governor Cox speaking with Governor Polis on one of the Sunday morning talk shows, and he was speaking our language. And really, I felt a kindred spirit. I shared that moment with Tomicah, who has some roots here, and I said, look, I think Governor Cox is an ally in this effort, and handed Tomicah the ball, and he ran with it.
Utah is a state that cares a great deal about family, and it also has an amazing history of building really important systems that impact the rest of the country. So if we drive not too far away from here, we would find the Golden Spike, where the Transcontinental Railroad first came together. You have a lot of other really innovative systems of irrigation and infrastructure that have been pioneered here. And this is a moment when we need to upgrade the digital infrastructure that powers the internet. And I think Utah is actually in a really good position to do that. I think there's a willingness to build and a history of building new things that have big impact here.
For some reason, you guys thought that interoperability, data portability, that was the piece that we needed to tackle first.
I gained insight from prior experience, and the prior experience that my family had. I come from a family of builders, infrastructure builders, and 5 generations. And back in the early 90s, we were one of the first to build the new telecom system in this country, at the dawn of this internet age. The World Wide Web was created in 1989, and in early 1991 we saw an opportunity, and this was led by my younger brother David, to actually build a telecom company that would leapfrog the so-called baby bells, which existed at the time. And the opportunity we saw was that the baby bells were on old infrastructure, copper wire. And with the arrival of the World Wide Web, and you wanted high-speed internet access, broadband, you needed fiber optic cable. And so we raised a good sum of money to build in every big city in America. And we knew if we got fiber optics in the ground that we could actually provide a better service to customers, to Americans. And off we went. And what we learned, however, was that individuals were very possessive of their phone number, and the baby bells wouldn't let individuals have their phone number. They claimed that the number belonged to the telecom company, to each of them. So in 1996, U.S. Congress passed the Telecommunications Act, which made phone numbers portable, and telecom companies had to become interoperable. And which our technology, by the way, that we had already been building for 5 years, demonstrated was possible. So it was no longer that can't be done, or it's too difficult, or too big, or complicated. So the combination of building the new technology, and then getting the policy to level the playing field, and to give people the power. So in 1996, phone numbers became portable, telecoms became interoperable. Well, that seems very analogous to where we are today. Why not have an internet where think of our data, our personal information, as our modern day phone number? We should own it. We should be able to move it where we like, permission its use, not have it taken from us through surveillance mechanisms. And the apps, why are we stuck in walled gardens? We shouldn't be. The app should be interoperable, so that you can be on one app, I can be on another, and with permission we can go ahead and exchange information. So I see it as very analogous to what was going on in the early 90s with the dawn of the internet as we know it, and the combination of technical advances and good policy making that actually was forward-looking enabled the future that we had. $2.5 trillion invested in telecom since 1996 in this country alone. So you see the massive opening of investment and innovation and creativity and jobs and value creation for people when you level the playing field and remove the power from just a few companies. Turns out our data is very, very valuable. These companies, as Governor Cox said, are the richest entities ever created in the history of mankind. And why? They're doing it on our backs, on the backs of individuals' data. So I think of data portability as phone number portability. Think of app interoperability as the same way you would think of the interoperability of a telecom. You have Verizon, I have AT&T, Tomicah has T-Mobile. Well, it's kind of silly, isn't it, if our phone doesn't work on all three? That's why we chose portability and interoperability first.
I think it goes to the core of a business model that isn't working right now. We need to fix those problems with the business model before we're going to be able to fix anything else. And addressing these twin challenges of data portability and interoperability has the potential to really evolve a business model that's broken and that's doing a lot of damage. The other point I'll say quickly is that right now we spend arguably too much time worrying about divisions between right and left in policy, when what we really should be focusing on is whether policymakers are builders or performers. Whether they just want to kind of get a lot of eyeballs on them or whether they actually want to solve problems. And this is a state, fortunately, where we've got some key builders like you and Governor Cox in positions to actually make things happen and solve problems. And that's another reason why we've been excited to work on these issues with the team that's here.
Yeah, this country has always been at its very best when it brings forward its builder mentality. Its real entrepreneurial spirit, its ability to take measured risk and innovate. As Tomicah said, we've kind of lost our way a bit because we have a performance-based internet where people go online and it's about clicks and likes and followers. Unfortunately, our media is being dragged into that same mentality, like rather than really helping educate the public with what is really important. It's what is being optimized on a search engine or what is trending that gets the lead. And this is not necessarily doing the public a service. As a matter of fact, I think it's really hurting our public discourse. Doug, when I was listening to your comments earlier, I was interested for sure in your story about your kids, and because I think that's what we all share, is we're parents. I was also interested in your background and your prior experience at Google as part of big tech, and you're not necessarily the most likely person to bring this bill forward, but then again, maybe you're the perfect person. Can you talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the tech industry the last decade, the last 5 years at Google, and I ran sales teams specifically around Google Ads. And so I know intimately how the algorithms work and kind of what they're using our data for, right? They're taking our data and information, it's informing an algorithm and then selling it to advertisers for billions of dollars. I realized early on working there that we were never the product, or we were never the customer, we were the product. And so they were, I was there, and what these big tech companies are doing is literally selling our free will for their profit margin. And now taking on this legislative role, I knew I had to make a difference and be a part of that change. And so when this idea came and was introduced to me around interoperability, it just kind of was the perfect marriage of my background and understanding it from the experience of being in big tech, but then also having children who I deeply care about and worry about the future of their digital identity and the digital world that they will inherit tomorrow. And so I was excited to kind of join. And you're right, as a freshman legislator, this is a large ask to take on this type of legislation, but I think they chose me given that I've seen the back end of things of big tech, and now I can use that experience and knowledge to help fix the problem.
Yeah, you can also know how proud your kids are going to be that you took it on, and so congrats on showing that courage and doing that. You mentioned free will, which I think is fascinating. Governor Cox also used mentioned the loss of free will, and look around in society today. There's this huge debate about the loss of free speech, but I think we're talking far too much about it and far too little about the loss of free will, because those same algorithms that know everything about us, so they can send us ads to buy things because they know we might be inclined to buy a good or a service. Well, they also know so much about us that they can feed us news that will be consistent with what we think. Not necessarily accurate, not necessarily factual, but reinforce a viewpoint. They can also, the algorithms know so much about us, and because we're hyper-profiled, that we can be triggered, which, by the way, turns out to be a very good thing to trigger people's anger and rage, keeps them online longer. And they also know so much about us that they're actually usurping our free will and our ability to make choices of our own. I don't know about you, but when I was very young in school, I learned that what distinguished human beings from the other animal species was free will and is free will, the ability to choose, to make judgments, to discern, to have agency. And that is, the thought of losing that is literally stripping a human being of something that's essential to being a human being. So I think we're in very, very dangerous territory right now, which is why this legislation is so vitally important. And I think will have a dramatic impact on other states and even other countries in terms of showing a way forward.
I think one thing that you mentioned is very important, is we now shift from being the product to now being a customer. And so this legislation changes the ability for us to own, manage, and control our own data. This idea of data portability, the fact that we can now extract or download our data and information, our friends, our social connections, our posts, the content that we create, and take it with us is huge. And then you add in the piece of interoperability, where we now can connect with other platforms and communicate seamlessly between those platforms, is, I think, this great next step that we're introducing to hopefully other states, other bright minds who are looking at the future of a safer and healthier internet. And that's the exciting piece. What I imagine that comes from this is, and I've told many Utahns, like, this is kind of the future of what we're building towards, is I imagine it almost being like a cafeteria experience, where you can go in and say, well, this app and this social media platform is built for safety. I can get that for my kids. Well, this one can build businesses. I'm going to add that for my business. Oh, this one is great about connecting me with donors, and I can add this for my nonprofit. And we can choose what's best for us, versus what we've been used to is these walled gardens, social media companies saying you have to act and interact within these parameters. And so I love the fact that we're moving to a place and giving users more freedom and their ability to choose what's best for them.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you're making about giving users freedom and choice and agency, because we hear a lot about AI agents right now. And I don't know about you, but when I think of an agent, I think of somebody that's working in my best interest, not somebody that's working in someone else's best interest. So AI agents that are products of big tech platforms, it's an oxymoron for a big platform to say, hey, we have a product for you called an agent that is going to make your life better. Oh, really? If a real AI agent works for you, works for me, and we go and pick and choose the algorithms we want, we go and pick and choose the apps we want, and so forth. It's not an agent working for the very institution that already owns us, and that just makes matters worse. So I think it's a misnomer to call the AI agents that big tech is promoting agents. It's further exploitation. Now, a real AI agent that really makes our life better, that's our agent working for us, that's powerful. But in order for that to be a reality, we need to give people data portability, and the apps need to be interoperability. This idea of who has the power to make the choices is fundamental. Who owns the data is fundamental. And so as we move into the technology becoming more powerful with AI, we need to fix what's broken first, give people the power, and then these AI agents will be awesome in terms of helping people, helping us live better lives.
So Representative Feifia, we've been talking a lot about building, and you were the architect of this bill. I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit more about what it does, what the implications are, and what people should expect when it goes into effect.
It's a great question. So the three main parts of this bill is first, data portability. So it'll allow individuals to download their information. We're calling it a social graph. So this is your friends and social connections. This is your posts and the content creation. It's your interactions online, and you can download that. The second step is interoperability, which it forces these social media companies to allow us to connect. You can cross-post, you can communicate seamlessly between them. And so you not only can download your information, but you can also transfer it to another social media platform without any issues. The third thing that it allows you to do is delete or correct your data and information on these platforms. And that's huge, right? The idea behind these three things is it allows individuals to own, manage, and control their data.
And tell us about when this is going to become real. We saw the governor sign the bill earlier today, which is amazing.
So this bill actually goes in effect July 1st, 2026. And we did that intentionally so that these large tech companies would have time to adapt and change, to make sure that it's not something we're just saying, hey, we expect it now, but to give them time to actually implement it so that it is implemented effectively. The next piece is we are trying to get this message out to other states. This legislation doesn't have much teeth if Utah is the only state that does this. We're hoping that other states jump on board and see the vision of us fighting back for our free will and giving users back ownership over their data. And so we're hoping that many states follow our lead and force these companies to do it, not only in their state and in Utah, but nationwide. One of the main concerns that we heard from legislators was, how is this going to affect small tech companies? Now, we live here in what we call Silicon Slopes. Similar to Silicon Valley, we have a lot of small tech startup companies that are here. And would they be able to adapt to these regulations and adapt their technology to fit with interoperability? And the great thing is we actually had a few of these tech companies come up and testify on behalf of this bill, sharing that this bill will actually drive up competition and drive up innovation. And so that was just proof that this bill is moving in behalf of small businesses. The second piece was just around, is this something that's reasonable? Is interoperable reasonable? We heard that from tech companies, and it is. And we've proven through Project Liberty that this technology is something that can happen. And so we've put pressure back on them to say, it's happened. There's 6 open protocols available today. You can pick one, you can create your own, and saying, we want you to actually go to work, and we're not going to mandate how it needs to happen, but allow you and your engineers to figure it out. But it's the way that we need to move. It's the way the market and users want, is, again, ownership back over their data.
Well, I've been encouraged and inspired by the amount of interest that we've seen, not only from other states, but from governments all over the world who are using the legislation that you have embraced in Utah as a template, as a model for what good looks like. And my aspiration, my hope, is that we're going to see states in the United States across the political spectrum, and hopefully governments all over the world, embrace this vision of data portability and data interoperability as the mechanism for building a better internet. Because if we solve those problems, and if we have legislative mandates that require data portability and interoperability, we will be well on our way to creating a new business model that doesn't have the underlying issues that are ubiquitous on the modern internet. And again, I just think that's immensely exciting and incredibly consequential for the future that we and our kids are going to live in.
I hope it's an inflection point so that legislators are beginning to see that this is not a tech issue. This is a human rights issue. Our data is our personhood. And it's just as it's the most important thing a parent can do is to protect their children, the most important thing a legislator could do is protect their constituency, protect citizens. And shifting this issue away from a this kind of battle with big tech, where the end, that's a fixed game, because they have all the power. Shift it away from a pure tech discussion to a discussion about what is really at stake here. This is about our citizenship. This is about owning what's ours. When the country was created, it was created based on a set of unalienable rights, that everybody was born with those rights. And then we built a whole great country around that idea of equality and autonomy and agency and choice and liberty. And now what we see are all those things we cherish being taken away from us by what? Free apps, right? A co-opting of an internet that was created to empower us. Instead, it's taking advantage of us. So we're becoming subjects again in the digital world. And so I'm hoping that we reframe this entire discussion from a tech conversation to a human rights conversation. Our data is our personhood.
This bill in the background can be very technological and very complex. And I think when we initially introduced the idea, we thought we could get a technical win and that would get us across the line. But we started losing people. And once we simplified the story, that it's not just about having the right technology that serves us, but it really is a human rights issue. And once legislators began to understand that, that's where we got them on board. One thing I think we did that was key here was a lot of groundwork. Project Liberty came and partnered with us. We met with so many legislators, especially those with technological backgrounds. If we could get them on board, we knew that other legislators would follow their lead. I think the partnership with Governor Cox was also key, being that we had support from the very top and also meeting with both the House and Senate leadership to get them on board early. And so I think just making sure that you get out in front of the story, releasing this type of bill in the public. As soon as this bill went live, I had about every lobbyist from every large tech company call me, text me, email me. And so making sure that you did the groundwork ahead of time so that when that came, you were prepared and you already had support from leadership, from the governor, from other legislators was key to make sure that we won.